So I missed a few days. Lost some momentum. A few reasons. I got a bit thrown off by some things. Kind of triggered by the seeming failure of trying to do something new, and then feeling that mixture of failure but also judgment of the world. You know, that I couldn't find a workplace and a learning opportunity that feels safe. I mean, that's, in a nutshell, it's something that I can line with, something that I can do that's not going to poison me or give me cancer or force me into some ideological prison. I mean, that's kind of separate. That's as far as wanting to build my skill set and so that I can fulfill a purpose, feel purposeful in this world, feel like I'm contributing. I know I have the intelligence and the capacity to contribute, but there's also this feeling of I don't have the qualifications, I don't have the resume, I don't have these, and not just for other people, but also for myself. Because I know that people will just do stuff, put themselves out there, and claim, and then, claim that they can do something, and then, well, it all depends. The problem can't do that easily with health because there's laws against that, and there's harsh punishment against that. So there's this, there's a mixture of self-censorship and self-limitation and worldly limitation. And it's not easy to sort that out because sometimes it feels like it's the world, it's the standards, it's the restrictions, it's the powers outside of me. But I know intellectually or theoretically that ultimately it's inside of me. So then I go into that and I consider that and I ponder that and I think about that. And something that I was delving into the past few days, which as well was kind of triggering and caused me to kind of sink into a low state, which is also why I didn't make any videos the last few days. I felt depressed. I felt, what's the point? It takes a certain amount of enthusiasm and energy to do even something as simple as this for me. When I get into that heavy, depressed state, I certainly don't want to put myself out on the internet. I barely want to do anything. The weather's been overcast and rainy, and so it kind of went hand in hand in just distracting myself and eating and watching YouTube, and that's about it. Just being in this cocoon, comforting myself. And I find myself doing that a lot. But one of the things that the content that I will look for on YouTube is educational, is about self-awareness. And so I was watching a bunch of videos about attachment attachment theory, and going through them, and came to the conclusion that my attachment style is the disorganized type, which is the most difficult because it's it represents this inner split and this confusion. So both having this anxious attachment style where there's a real anxiety around needing attention, needing affirmation, needing desperate for approval and love. Which can often push it away because it seems like bombarding somebody, and it seems grasping, and it seems high maintenance. And then on the other side is the avoidant and fearful. And that's how I very much can be as well, in pushing people away. And that's what I've been doing a lot of. Throughout my life. Both of these things have gone on throughout my life, but I can actually see that they've kind of, in a way, gotten worse. They've kind of gotten more extreme. And I think, unfortunately, this can happen as people get older. It's almost like the momentum of the trauma kind of builds. I mean, my belief, unfortunately, is that I probably will be alone for the rest of my life. That's my belief. I would like to believe differently, but and when I mean alone, I mean alone. No family, no friends, no romantic partner. And that's a dreadful feeling and thought. But it's pretty much what seems to be the truth to me. Because, as I say, I don't feel confident that I can just meet somebody that I can feel safe with. For a number of reasons. My experience with most gay men is that they're highly dysfunctional as well. I feel like I'm more functional than most. Even the ones that I think initially have their shit together and are well balanced and intelligent, after a while I realize that they're just as dysfunctional, if not more dysfunctional than I am. As soon as I know that I'm hypervigilant too, that I'm looking for warning signs, and that's not good. That's distrustful. That's fearful. I know that I end up. I'm hypervigilant. I'm hypervigilant. And, that's, I'm not secure in the world. I regularly feel dysregulated and going through emotional ups and downs. I mean, I even, because I saw that there's some overlap with borderline personality disorder, and so I investigated that. And honestly, I can't say that that's totally ruled out. Although I think that if I'm approaching borderline personality disorder, I'm a mild case of it, I think. Mostly because I don't have the outbursts that it seems, the volatility perhaps. Although it seems that there's some people with BPD that are more internal about all that. It's all happening inside. So I don't know, maybe I would fit a diagnosis, but I don't want to put myself into a box. I want to just self-reflect and address the issues in the hopes that I can have some movement on them. And ideally, use those things as my strength somehow. I believe that that's possible. I mean, in theory. I don't feel often like I have the strength to do that. I have lots of good ideas, but then when it comes to being consistently able to follow through, that's very difficult because of these ups and downs that I experience even within the day. And this is not new. And yeah, it's not only not trusting other people, it's not trusting myself too. And I think that needs to be dissected a little bit. Because it's where is myself? What is myself? And this, it's a difficult thing for me to find a core there. I mean, when I feel that connection within, It's something non-tangible. So I do have this ability to kind of tap into this depth within me. But it's like touching the ocean, right? And my desire is to just dissolve in the ocean and, have that blissful return. That's not the hard part, but there's no self in that, as far as taking that self into the world and day-to-day life. When I come back to that, the world, and applying myself in the world, there's this enmeshing back into all the attachments or difficulty in attaching, difficulty in identifying, even difficulty identifying with my own persona, my own superficial identity, which is necessary for interacting in the world. That is our interface with the world. And so there's something there that I'm not sure if it's I don't believe in it, or I have a poor sense of self-esteem. I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. It's when I am quite judgmental of people who seem to be very, to me, overly identified with their persona, their appearance, their things, their job, their body, their ego identity. I'm judgmental of those people, and I don't want to be like that. And yet I think that in a way maybe I'm swung to the opposite polarity, which is just as bad or just as dysfunctional. And because of that, the persona is it's undermined and it's insecure. And I think maybe this would be fine if I was a monk living in a monastery, and there's the monastery and the religion and the whatever, that's kind of the turtle shell. But I feel in many ways like a turtle without a shell, and I'm reiterating what I heard in a video of a woman with BPD talking to her therapist, where she describes herself as a turtle without a shell. And that really resonated with me, where I feel overly vulnerable, and that the only way I can feel safe is if I kind of stay at home and avoid everything, avoid relationships, avoid taking risks. The world seems unsafe to me. And that was affirmed just a few days ago, last week, when I thought, I'll try this thing that I'm inspired to do, which to start an apprenticeship as a RV mechanic. And because that interests me, I would love to have a workshop. I would love to have a shop where I can do all sorts of things. I like doing that. I like art. I like fixing things. I like learning how to do stuff with my hands. All of it. Gardening, building things, using tools. I would happily do all of that stuff for free. You know, if my shelter was paid for and I had food. I'm hungry to be making and doing and building and creating. But I'm very much undermined by this feeling of insecurity, this lack of safety, that I think is very deep rooted in when I was listening to different people from you know, psychologists to counselors, different people talking about disorganized attachment. It is because of this early childhood incongruency around love and affection and safety. And I believe very much that I did not feel safe. I did not feel an organized sense of self and how I would be treated by my parents. I look back at myself early on and see consistently a feeling of insecurity, and at an early age not trusting my parents. That's what it boils down to, not trusting them, and yet also feeling like there's nobody else. I don't trust anybody. I didn't trust teachers. I didn't trust people at school. The world was very unsafe. And my primary caregiver, my mom, I did not feel a consistent, dependable love and safety from. And my father, neither. But I think with my mother, it was more extreme, where at times there was warmth and nurturing, but then there was other times that was scary and not safe. And so I think even the times of nurturing, I didn't trust after a while. And that's kind of where I am now, or have been for a long time too, is like, even when I've been in relationships, I don't fully trust. I keep people kind of at a distance. There's this push-pull. And I know I can even kind of sabotage things and get kind of weird in relationship, where I'm feeling kind of frenetic. I'm not feeling safe, and I'm not relaxing into it, and I'm not opening up, and I'm not trusting. There's a variety of things that come out. I recognize that I replicate my mother's controlling, domineering kind of approach in relationship of If I'm in a relationship, then I'm going to micromanage and I'm going to fix and I'm going to tell you what to do, and there's not a just there's a loss of self. There's this enmeshment thing, and it's very disruptive, and it's not appealing for the other person. I think they get turned off by it. And there's this back and forth of me being either aloof and cold or micromanaging and controlling. And neither of those are nice. Those are and yeah, it just, I don't even know how to change that. One of the therapists suggested that it takes, well, they said it's very difficult to change. It's one of the most difficult attachment styles, because it's this inner conflict, it's this inner divide. And that the way to resolve it is to be in a secure relationship. And so it's like, it requires being in a relationship and practicing certain things. And I think they also suggested too, like, being in a relationship with with healthy people, obviously, that one might even find boring, because they're not replicating that familiar disorganized roller coaster kind of relating. So that, I mean, in a way, that's kind of discouraging, that I need to be in a relationship to heal it. And yet, at 49 and gay, seems like the chances of finding a gay man around my age that has a healthy attachment style, that is attracted to me, seems really unlikely. For so many reasons. One of the problems seems like ideologically, I do not get on with a lot of gay men, because most of them have been captured by a progressive ideology that I don't align with, that I'm critical of. Two is that I'm not going on the apps. I'm not using Grindr. I'm not doing that because it's just disgusting. Most people are on there just for hookups. Most gay men don't want committed long-term relationships, it seems. I think it's because most have some dysfunctional attachment style. They're so dysfunctional on many levels, just like I am. Worse than I am, because they're captured by an ideology. They're self-indulgent and not self-reflective. It's too painful to look at this stuff. I mean, I have been working on it, trying to heal myself and be strong for a long time. It's up and down. It's up and down. It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, it feels like. And it's just so rare that I meet somebody that even is willing to self-reflect and have some self-accountability. So it just seems so highly unlikely that I would even meet somebody that I felt a connection with. Yeah, just meeting somebody, because I'm not going to a bar. There are, I'd have to go to another town to go to a gay bar. There's not one here. The few opportunities for meeting outside of the apps are fully soaked in the progressive ideology. It's rainbow flag, all genders, let's include the indigenous, let's include all the, like, it's not even just for gay men. It's like some circus meetup. And no, that's not my jam. So I think I need to just kind of accept where I'm at. And I think one of my best ways of doing that is making these videos, because it's a revealing to myself. It's a showing up for that revealing. Just like sitting down to writing in a journal, one doesn't necessarily even know their thoughts until they commit to expressing them. And I think in that process, there's also a further assessment. We might say something and then we're like, well, that's not quite right. And so there's a refining process. And when I'm watching these videos back, after, whether through the little bit of editing that I do, or sometimes I'm watching them on YouTube, then I'm getting more insight kind of about myself, and also building confidence in revealing myself, which has happened. There's other things that come up in that process that, well, I mean, I guess it is part of it, but like there's discomfort. Sometimes it's, in a way, it almost feels like it could be making things worse. Like that there's anxiety is increased, knowing that over the past few days, I was thinking that I wanted to delete all the videos that I've uploaded. Because this thought of like, oh, this person could see this, or this person could see this, and so that was kind of triggering my feelings of anxiety and vulnerability. No doubt, right? Like the internet is far-flung, and you have no idea who is watching things. And and I'm talking about vulnerable things. But I know that is the way, is facing things, being honest about things. No, the world is not trustworthy. The world is not trustworthy in general. There is danger. But we have to make calculated risks. We have to take some risks. And I can trust myself to not reveal too much. I'm not saying where I live, although probably somebody could find that if they tried really hard. I'm not using other people's names, and that's not calculated. I haven't put down a list of things that I'm not going to share. It's just I learned in hypnotherapy that our subconscious actually is protective of us, and that's why some of the weird things it does is because it's trying to protect us. Its rationale, its logic is protective. And the whole point in hypnotherapy is examining, getting into that operating system, getting into those programs and making them conscious, because they often were put in place at a time when there was a certain rationale in the consciousness. So maybe we were 5 years old, maybe we were 8 years old, 12 years old, and our assessment of the world was a certain way. That was the rationale, that was the logic that we took from the moment, from the occasion. And if we re-examine it from my 49-year-old knowledge of the world, I can see that it was flawed. You know, the simple fact of when you're young, you think that your parents are gods, they know everything, what they say is the gospel. And then at 49, you can rationalize, no, they were fallible humans. At that time, they weren't even 30 years old. They knew much less than I know now. For a number of reasons. They lived in a world that was before the internet. Their exposure to a lot of things was very limited. So that means that belief that my subconscious took in at the time was not something that I still want to be operating with. I need to update the subconscious record of what certain things mean, memories, impressions, and this is what's called the inner child or parts work, where we're talking to that part of ourselves and we're kind of updating them, or we're revising their impression on the world and kind of integrating them into our updated self. So, because I'm not working with a therapist, I'm not going to a hypnotherapist, I'm not going to any therapist. Again, because I don't necessarily trust anybody. I feel I went to a naturopath, cost me $250 for one visit, and she prescribed herbs that I already knew about. Those kind of things, I mean, I think this is part of my feeling of being betrayed by authority. I don't trust other people. This is what it boils down to. And also, at times, I don't trust myself because I feel fragmented. I feel like one moment I can think one thing and feel one thing, and another moment I can think and feel something else. And so it's a very, it's in that sense, I don't trust myself. There's also the thing where I have an intellectual, and this is everybody, of course, I have an intellectual assessment of the world, an intellectual knowledge about, okay, this is, as I've just described, kind of this is what's going on. I can recognize that I am being triggered by things, by beliefs and thoughts of an immature assessment of reality. So I can intellectually know that, but still, that doesn't in itself override the emotional reactions or the power that those previous experiences still have in me. And this is why we need, this is why people turn to things like ayahuasca, and I believe hypnotherapy can be useful for this. Absolutely, but self-hypnosis is not as easy to do as having somebody else it be facilitated by a therapist. I have done some self-hypnosis, but it's not easy. It's not easy being your own therapist. I'm not even sure if it's possible. I think it's possible if you can hand it over to a higher power. So in that regard, it takes faith and a spiritual practice. But having that, when you also have this lack of trust and authority, you have self-doubt, that also undermines your discipline and your spiritual practice as well, and your faith as well. It's very hard to have faith when you have this underlying feeling of the wrongness of the world, the lack of safety. That's when you need it, for sure. But to build up that, I think that this is, to me, this is an interesting thing so I think that if I had been indoctrinated with a faith at early life, right? I was told and to believe in something, and went to church every Sunday with my parents, and this was really grounded in me, then I would have that. But because my spiritual practices and faith and all that has been created by me as an adult, started when I was an adolescent. My parents did not really give me a faith or a spiritual teaching, then for me, in having to kind of create that as an adult, it's not as solid, because if I distrust myself, then I distrust my own self-teaching. This is the paradox in a way of freedom, you know. With freedom also comes an ungroundedness. And this is something I think that is super relevant right now. And in October, today's the 1st of October, I believe, Neptune is going to go back into Pisces for the last time. And Saturn is in Pisces. And this is this kind of wishy-washy ungroundedness. Saturn, of course, is going to be demanding, like, you know, what is real? Like, let's extract from spirituality what we can put our finger on. And I think that is what I'm trying to do here in saying it needs to be something that we can turn to and it be trustworthy. And the problem with being our own guru and cherry picking all the different philosophies and faiths is that it's a little bit too ethereal. It too easily comes and goes with our whims. And so that means, like, when we're depressed and when we're sad, then we're going to lose our faith. I think that this is why, you know, spiritual practices and traditions, they're like a clock. And this is Capricorn and this is Saturn, where it's like there's a discipline. There's a discipline and it's focused, and there's rules to it. This is the balancing of the kind of fluid and intangible nature of spirit, of our soul, and that the voice of spirit is subtle. I believe we are constantly being whispered to by our spirit, but this whole idea of free will is that it doesn't override us, right? It's this blending of this persona, this identity that is like a condensation, is something that is created by spirit coming into form. And then there's this relationship between our soul, which I think is this eternal core of who we are, and the persona. There's this relationship between them, this kind of back and forth where they're kind of informing each other. I mean, here I'm catching myself getting too heady about it. When I think we're here trying to learn the practicality the crystallization which is what Saturn wants to do. Saturn wants to take all of the infinite possibilities and be decisive and make something real of it. And the balance that we need to find is in not being overboard in that. Control and micromanaging. Because I think that comes from fear. That comes from fear of being dissolved, of the ocean sweeping away everything that we've gathered about us. I mean, we have an awareness that everything about our human life is very fragile. We try and fool ourselves about that, or but because it's fearful, that temporariness of everything. I mean, it's so immediate, really. It doesn't take long for things in our life to fall apart, to break. All of these things, a loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of our health, loss of finances. There's so much impermanence and loss that we feel on a regular basis as humans living a human life. We're really motivated by that. By the grasping and the fear of losing. And that's really sad, I think, when I'm thinking in my case, what makes me sad is where that fear is so strong that it means that it kind of cuts off everything else. It cuts off the ability to enjoy what currently is, what's currently possible, that's readily available with some courage and bravery. Some willingness to take risks. And it may be a risk, it may only be a very, very small risk. Maybe there's practically no risk at all. I guess there always is some existential kind of risk, but there's not a ton of risk of just leaving your house and walking on the sidewalk. And yet, for me, that can even, the moment I leave my apartment, the moment I think about leaving my apartment, I start armoring myself. I start shifting into a different state where I'm kind of psychically toughening myself. And it's not entirely wrong, because sometimes when I find when I'm just home in this kind of shellless state, or I'm just in this like yin allowing state, there's this like decaying that occurs. There's this dissolving back into the ocean. And I don't really want that. I want to have this focus. I want to have this crystallizing. I think that this is what our soul wants. And there is some hardening in that. But it's a moment-to-moment navigation, I think, that is needed. And a letting go of the past, which I think means an updating of the past, because it's not like those memories or impressions are going to go away entirely. Maybe they don't. Maybe they never go away, perhaps. So we need to reframe them, revise what they meant, especially now, right? They can have meant something in the past, but what do they mean now? And for example, I'm very conflicted about not having a relationship with my family members. Part of me feels guilty about that. But that's mostly based on this idea of that I owe them something, there's some obligation, lifetime obligation to them. There's some great tragedy in not having them in my life. It's really emotional stuff. It's really, I think it's kind of immature attachment stuff. There's also, it's painful because there's no replacement. I think it'd be easier if I had my own family and not just be alone. So the emotions are always going to kind of override the intellect. They're just deeper seated. But I think the emotions are based in our beliefs, which are just thoughts we keep thinking. So it is possible to repattern ourselves, repattern our beliefs by thinking different thoughts, whether that's through affirmation or self-analysis and reframing, and then the emotions can change. And then we can create a new set point. For example, then I could believe that it's possible to find a relationship and behave differently within it. So hopefully I'll continue to do these because I think it does help me narrow it down.